My coffee's already cold. Shit.
Wabash Valley. Good evening. Hopefully this time's going to work out tonight.
Struggles of having 4 children. They sometimes choose to get a life, and then we have to coordinate. I used to love my Yeti cooler. Yeah, we have one too. It's amazing.
That's where the shirt came from. Came with it.
Where you live, Michael? Because in Texas, Yeti's a big deal, but it's kind of a necessity. It gets so hot, and
Scott's book.
Everything else melts.
Fellow Texans, God bless the Republic.
But you're from New York.
Shut up.
Oh, just got his book. Good. I have. It's been quite a journey with those books. About 75 books are going out.
Need some more? Hell no.
No. We're looking to let go of a couple of especially the teenagers. We're going to wait a couple minutes and let everybody come in, and we'll get going, see how many people we have. Last week we had over 400.
Yeah, that was a record-breaking one last time.
Hey, Pistol Pete. I haven't seen you in a while.
Hey, Pete.
Yes, this is our last Q&A for August. So you will see us again in a couple of weeks.
Indiana.
Unfortunately, next Wednesday is my birthday. So as much as I love you guys, I would like to do a gun-free birthday. Cunning Patriot, did you find anything out about the Lago Alien pistol?
Actually, yes. They're not available yet for sale. They brought a few in for that some writers have gotten to hold of, but they haven't been shipped out to the writers. They were more like showing at SHOT Show. I did look into it. It's something that will stay on my radar. Again, it's one of those expensive pistols.
This connection is unstable. Please cooperate. As much as I pay for internet.
I want to let you guys know something. I've had a couple of you guys contact me about the Brownells Retro series, how they were discontinuing it. I had gotten a hold of my contacted Brownells Roy, and what I have been told is they are discontinuing the BRN 601 as a complete rifle. You will be able to buy the parts and build them yourselves. However, the BRN 16A1, the XBRN 16E1, the XBRN 177, and the BRN 10 are still going to be in production. However, due to COVID and parts and not being able to get components, this has been the holdup on those. So the XBRN Proto, that one's going to be done. There's a couple of models that weren't really selling very well for them will be done. However, you still will be able to buy the parts if you so choose to make it for yourself. I'm very sad about the BRN 601. That was awesome. So unfortunately, it's just going to be a lot more effort now to get one. Hello from Canada. How are things in the Great White North, eh?
After the pandemic, I'm unstable. Never mind the connection. We all are, Kirk. All of us. If you didn't have mental health issues before the pandemic, you do now. Okay, so we're going to kick it off. We're early. It's crazy. There's actually light coming through the window still. I'm going to pop in the donor box link. If you would like to make a donation during the chat, you can also go to smallarmsolutions.com. And there is a link there. It's very easy to use. You can put your question in the notes section or comment section with your donation, and that will come to my phone, and you will bump the line of questions. You can also use the super chat $ and make a donation during the chat. However, just be aware that Google does take a whopping 30%, which is terrible. But I always go up to the top and pull questions, and I try to stay in order as best as possible. So if it's been a little bit and your question hasn't gotten to yet, don't despair. I usually will go, sometimes even all the way up to the top to try to pull those. Chris, is the 6.8 SPC safe to shoot with any ammo?
Oh, sure. This is how it works. I'm sure you may have heard or may not have heard of the Spec 1, Spec 2 chambers. Now, the Spec 1 chamber is the SAMI spec chamber. The Spec 2 is what the cartridge was designed for. It's a higher pressure cartridge. However, most manufacturers or many manufacturers manufacture a Spec 1 chamber because it is SAMI. So there are specifications for it for ammo and whatnot. And it is not safe to fire Spec 2 ammunition in a Spec 1 chamber. Now, there are many companies that do make Spec 2, such as LWRC for one. They're making Spec 2, and there's several other ones. But I know I have an LMT 68 SBC barrel for mine, and it's a Spec 1 chamber. Carl wanted to do that because there was specifications. When that cartridge first came out, everybody and their brother was making barrels and whatnot, and nobody knew what was what. And that's why you had to standardize on the lower pressure ammunition.
What do you think of Primary Weapons Systems piston design?
It's sort of funny you mentioned that because I just got one last week. That one, next time I go to the range, I'll be going to the range that I have reviewed some of them before. It's an excellent system. Some of the more unique aspects is the way that it vents. It vents in stages. It has 3 different stages, the way that it vents the gas out underneath the handguard. It's long stroke, so you get no carrier tilt. In fact, I think they were probably the first long stroke. It was either them or AdCore Defense. They were the first ones to do the long stroke. Very well made. The barrels are very nice. The receivers, the Mod 2 lightweight receivers are very nice. They're ambidextrous. But you can actually count on a video coming out probably within the next month or two on that one. I do have a previous video out. I'm sort of doing a relook at it because the one that I didn't have for very long before. This one we're going to be doing a little bit more with.
We have so much to film. So much to film. We could do another crime series too. I feel like it's been a minute since the crime series has been done.
I got one ready to go.
You guys are really in luck tonight because we're just now hitting 100 people. This time tonight is throwing people off.
Yeah.
Well, these are just our real fans, though, because they actually got the notice for it. Do you plan on doing a review on the Bren 2SMS 762x39?
Not the 762x39 unless I can get my hands on one. There will be a video coming up. Right now, I have a 2MS pistol. I'm waiting for the 2MS carbine to come in, and I'm going to do both of those at once. I have a very difficult time getting stuff out of CZ just because of the fact that why are they sending them out to writers when they can't keep them in stock for their orders? So they don't see a lot of need for marketing at this point. I do not have one in 760x39. If I can get one, I certainly would love to.
Anyone recommend a good scope for hunting on a 16-inch BCM, something durable?
Well, it just depends on what you want. There's tons of nice red dots. I've got everything Leupold, Trijicon, EOTech, DI Optical, Vortex. Just got one of the new Leupold. Their red dot, their standard red dot. You just have tons of options. It just depends on what you want. If you're looking for magnified optic, I found the SIG and both the Vortex are great scopes for the money.
We have a question from Donor Box from Daniel. Thank you, Daniel. He said the 6.5 Creedmoor goes through barrels quickly and requires a longer barrel than many other calibers. These seem to be major disadvantages for the AR platform. With that in mind, what place does the 6.5 Creedmoor have in the AR market?
Well, the 6.5 Creedmoor has very similar situations than the 6.5 Grendel does, except worse. The only negative aspect really to the 6.5 Grendel and 6.5 Creedmoor is it goes through barrels a lot quicker. Smaller caliber, higher velocity rounds, so you get more heat and get more wear. And another reason why you have longer barrels for Creedmoors and for Grendels is because of the propellant that's used is slower burning. So it requires a longer barrel for it to burn the propellant, so you get the maximum velocity out of it. Same's not true with 308s. 308s, the propellant that's used right now is pretty much burnt up within 18 inches. So anything above 18 inches on a 308 is it's not really worthwhile. But with the Creedmoor, especially, yeah, you're looking at a minimum of 20 to 22 to 24 inches. I think even 20 inches these days is pushing it with the Creedmoor. You really should have 22 to 24. I have a couple. I have one that's I think an 18, and the accuracy is not like it is at all with the LNT 22 inch that I got here. It's night and day. And the Grendel's the same way. You need the longer. One thing also the Grendel does have too, you have more reliability issues. The Creedmoor, you don't have any reliability issues whatsoever. I've never seen any of those malfunction. The magazines, just standard SR25 type magazines. That's not the case with the Grendel. The Grendel still, even with its modified magazine, is not the most reliable of calibers.
Ed on DonorBox, thank you so much, Ed. Will Colt ever bring back the SP1? Secondly, in your opinion, how much of a negative effect did the union have on Colt's current state of affairs?
Bringing back the SP1, no way in hell. What they would have to do to bring back to retool and bring back obsolete parts is literally impossible. I don't have any. Yeah, that's not right. You see what they did with the M16A Retro. That would end up going to somebody else to manufacture, not Colt parts. You wouldn't get the same thing. So I would do a hard no on that. The problem with the union was it was the cost, the way to do business, the cost of living in within Connecticut, and the strikes. I can't think a whole lot good that the union did for Colt. Just due to the fact that it cost them contracts because of the strikes. I can tell you, if when I was there, boy, you want to talk about unions being a pain in the ass. I got in trouble one time because I had a police department that was having problems with their carbines. They were saying that they had several carbines that were down. They said they were all Colt guns. They came back to me. Now I was told that all 20 carbines or submachine guns that these guys had, they were 5.56. All of them were down. None of them would function on fully automatic. So I said, well, send me 3 of them. And when they came in, I took them back immediately, found out that they put aftermarket barrels on them. They had extremely heavy Bushmaster barrels on them, which required an H2 buffer. They had the standard H buffer because they swapped out the barrels. So, I dropped in 3 replacement buffers as a courtesy and sent them back. I got in trouble because I basically took work away from a union worker. And we can't do that. So even though I was working for, training stuff out for a police department, we're all working for the same place. There was a strict line in between what I could do versus what a union worker could do. So yeah, it was, it put people at Colt on different playing fields and restricted what people could and couldn't do because of the union contracts and so forth. So no, I don't believe the union was ever good for Colt in any which way.
Mike says, no question tonight. Just love everything you guys do. Watch all your videos.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Mike. Justin on DonorBox. Thank you, Justin. Do you think it is practical to integrate a heads-up display going to an optic on a trifle to say shit around corners? Am I saying that right?
I got to tell you, my area of expertise is mechanics. In firearms mechanics, I don't know shit about electronics. Anything that would reduce the risk of exposure so someone doesn't get shot is a good thing. So I definitely think that it's a good thing as long as it doesn't interfere with the mechanics of the firearm and your ability to operate the firearm.
My favorite variant of the M16 is the A2 version, but focus on ARs seems to be what came out before the A2 and after it. Do you know a company that makes a great quality stock AR-15 A2?
The last people that I knew who did that was Bushmaster, which obviously Bushmaster isn't out right now, isn't manufacturing right now, and also DPMS, which also is not out right now. You can still build them. In fact, Brownells had some LMT A2 upper receivers that you just get the parts and build it up. But for as far as companies that are actually building complete A2s at this point, I'm not sure. Um, I was looking into that myself the other day. I just contacted PSA, requested another gun from them that was their M16A4 variant. Looking at some of these more retro type things, but it's something that we've definitely hope somebody will come up with. 'Cause there's a lot of us, when we served, we used the A2s, so the gun still holds a lot of sentimental value.
Crystal Pepsi, do you think the FN F09 509 is as capable as the Glock or SIG P320? And thank you in advance. Oh, you're an inspiration. That's very nice.
Oh, thank you so much. The FN 509 does not have the combat experience that either one of these do now. It also was one that was entered into the XM17, and it was not one that didn't pass. So that's not a good indication of where it's at for as far as a military pistol. Now, that does not mean for use of a commercial civilian law enforcement it's not good. That just means it's not designed to go through 12,000 rounds without malfunction. I've reviewed them before. I can't say there's anything wrong. Nothing I didn't like about it. It shot well. It was reliable. Nothing bad I can say about it. But when you're asking them to compare it to ones now that are basically combat proven, the P320, although it had some major teething issues with the M17, it seems to be they worked their way out of those problems, and the gun's going to be very well liked and very well received by many in the military. Is a modern pistol, is a modern pistol that for the people who didn't care for the the more old-fashioned 92 M9, I guess. I'm still an M9 fan to say the least, but I can see where people are liking the new one.
Any ideas on how graphene can be used in firearms manufacturing to improve accuracy and rigidity?
I'm not sure what graphene is, to be honest with you, sir.
Let me look it up.
I've never heard of that in any manufacturing that I've ever seen.
It's carbon consisting of a single layer of atoms arranged in two-dimensional honeycomb lattice.
So will that be
like
on my
graphite.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think I can answer that. I'm not familiar with that. I'm not really familiar with
It
graphite.
says it has a lot of promise for additional applications for anti-corrosion coatings and paints and precision sensors and electronics. So,
Yeah, I've never seen that used in firearms as an additive to a metal, which I imagine what you're asking me is an additive to the metal. Based on what I'm just hearing, that sounds like the main benefit would be corrosion resistance. But with a proper chrome-plated military barrel, you're not going to have that as a problem. And even with a stainless steel barrel, it's accuracy. The problem is not the hardness; it's more corrosion with them as well.
he says it's super strong, and the single lattice of carbon molecules. I can't talk.
Unfortunately, I'm not a materials engineer.
James, thank you. Do you think that the military is trying to fix a problem that doesn't need fixed with a new rifle? Should they just change the round in the AR to something like 6mm ARC or not mess with it at all?
The problem with what's going on right now is the military is trying to find a single rifle for use in all conditions. It's not possible. You go with a longer, higher power cartridge like this, even the 6mm you're referring to, you're still are going to have excessive recoil in size in a close quarter battle. You go out to the longer ranges where you're going to see the benefit. So trying to find something that's going to work for both it just doesn't work. I think money would be far better off spent to create a second rifle similar to the M4 in a larger caliber, such as 6.5 Creedmoor, or such as something in the 6mm realm to make it more useful in places like Afghanistan where you have longer shot capability. But trying to find one that's going to take care of everything is just not going to work. They're just two different animals, and you basically give up too much on each end by trying to do that.
Back to Fanny says it's too powerful when assembled correctly. Unfortunately, we're only at 80% pure to easily manufacture. That's probably why he doesn't know about it yet.
Yeah, I've you know,
They said it's awesome for coatings, and it's industrial mostly.
I'm the first one to admit I don't know everything. I've been out of the game with working with manufacturers on that kind of development for a couple of years now. I'm working on other developments, but not so much barrel materials. Barrel materials hasn't really been the top of the list of what manufacturers are doing right now. Everybody still wants to try to make things lighter. That seems to be what they want to do right now is keep going lighter, lighter, and lighter.
TBN, could you add an LMT enhanced bolt to the Palmetto KS47 and mitigate the thin wall issues that standard 762x39 AR bolts have?
No, the issue is the geometry on the KS47 bolt is different from anything else that's out there. It's not the same. It's not something that I would recommend that you change out. There's some issues that the bolt has, such as in feeding the way the lugs are. The lugs on a standard AR type geometry, if the rear of the magazine isn't up far enough, those bottom two lugs can scrape onto the middle of the top cartridge, and then drag it up, causing a malfunction. So Palmetto State Army did a lot of work to get around those issues. So the geometry is completely different. So no, not in a KS47. If you had any other AR type, I would say yes. But the KS47 is not just a parts gun. That thing was developed from the ground up with the engineering of the bolt and everything, and the carrier. The carrier sits differently as well. So no, not at all.
Please remember to thumbs up the chat, guys. Matt wants to know, you're familiar with the ATI OmniMax P4. Is it safe to shoot steel case ammo?
Yeah, the problem with the steel cased ammunition is the fact that the port pressures are lower. If you fire it in an ATI, it may or may not work. Same with anyone. It depends on where ATI gets their barrels from. If they decide to go with a military grade barrel, which is going to have a military grade gas port, which, like anything else, isn't going to like it. But for the most part, because if you're going with 16-inch barrel, you probably won't have too many problems. But the ATI will fire anything that you put in it. It's as long as you have the proper port pressures, it will fire it. Generally, what happens with it's seen more so in the 10.5, 11.5, and sometimes 14.5-inch barrels. It's not generally seen as much in 16-inch. Most of the time, you see it in 16 inches if you find a rifle that's under gas, meaning your gas port hole is too small. Again, that's what you do. What you deal with when you choose to shoot that ammunition that's not made to any kind of a specification.
What is the best factory 308 close to a true what would Stoner do concept?
I think in concept, I don't think anybody really makes a true lightweight 308. Not that I've seen. Nobody's gone that way because it's impractical in a lot of ways because of the recoil. That was one of the issues with the original AR-10 was if you were to fire an original Armalite or original A&I AR-10, it bucked like a mule. It's probably much more so than pretty much anything that's out there today. I think he would have probably looked at making a combination of barrels. I mean, I tell you, if you look at the LMT barrels, he's got those gas perfect where it really decreases recoil. But again, what makes the LMT is as comfortable, even on full auto, is the stock assemblies and how you're able to grip it. I think you're probably better off trying to build something like that, trying to find some kind of a lightweight pencil barrel, and trying to find some receivers that are pretty much stripped down to try to decrease that weight. But you're not going to sacrifice anything. He would never would have sacrificed anything with going with any kind of a barrel other than a standard steel barrel.
Al from Donor Box, thank you, Al. He says he's looking for a solid scope mount for an AR-15, wants to know what your suggestions are, and also wants to tell you that LWRC's customer service is superb.
Yeah, they are. LWRC is an extremely good company. Now, this is going to depend on how much money you want to spend, because I will tell you, my favorite of all mounts is Spur. They are the most expensive. They are like Swiss watches. Hakan does an absolute gorgeous job there. Again, if you look at them, they're just beautiful. Number two, I'm going to have to say Geisley. Those are probably the super, their super mounts and all that kind of stuff. Those are probably the two best that there are, but you're going to spend the money. Now, are there, if you're looking for something that's really good on a budget, Aero Precision makes some nice mounts. And there's some nice rings that are out there. Even still had to this day have some of the the arms for lever rings. But if you're looking for the best, yeah, Spur and Geisley hands down.
I was just checking the connection because it looked like it was cutting out, but it looks like it's okay now. Connor, I have 2 USGI magazines with a green follower, and the last 2 to 3 rounds always nosedive back into the magazine. Was this common with issued mags?
No, I think you have a defective magazine. Either the Phillips are on there or your spring is worn. It's not presenting that up far enough. Yeah, something you have to understand about these magazines, people, is these were not designed to be used over and over and over and over again. They're cheap and they're aluminum. Even the military has them listed as a disposable commodity. These things aren't designed to last forever. If you want magazines that are going to last you forever, look at the Magpul P mags. They're polymer. They will have a lot longer of a service life and take a lot more abuse than a GI magazine will. These things just wear out, and sometimes it's just time to say goodbye and get some replacements.
Thank you for the donation.
But let me say one more thing.
Sorry.
If you want to try to salvage the magazine, get a hold of Magpul and get some of their followers and see if those followers help out. But quite frankly, it's probably just time to say goodbye and get some new ones.
We have a donation with a dancing pair or bowing pair. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Cunning Patriot, do you think that normal civilians or at least prior military should be able to own fully automatic weapons without a Class 3 license?
I think you have to look at the facts. The facts are there has never been a crime committed that I am aware of with a legally owned machine gun. There's only one, and that was some kid got drunk, broke into his dad's safe, and was shooting out lights on street lamps with his M16. That is the only crime I'm ever aware that has been committed. Do I think that you should have a background check? I don't think a fully automatic is any more dangerous, more or less, than a semi-automatic. I see the problem I have with this whole full automatic thing is it is now, because of the way that it's been done with not making anything after 86, it's now turned into a rich man's game. The only way you're going to be able to own a legally owned fully automatic is if you're rich and you can afford to drop $30,000 on a machine gun. So I think that's completely unfair. That in order to exercise your Second Amendment right, you have to be rich to own a machine gun. I don't think they should be any more controlled than a handgun would be. I guess I don't have problems with licensing or background checks to make sure that the person that's going to doesn't have a record. They should not be illegal. I don't. Yeah, I believe the NE. I don't believe in the registration. I do believe in licensing and background checks, but I don't see any reason why they should ever have been taken, because they weren't used in crimes. It just wasn't. It wasn't that way. And the NFA, again, all it does is it prevents people who aren't rich from exercising that right, and that's not fair.
Dustin on Donor Box, thank you. How efficient would the Hornady 55 grain urban tap ammo perform out of a 10.5 or 11.5 barrel, since it's a varmint round designed to fragment and not over penetrate? Would it ice pick a target with that barrel length?
A lighter projectile with a thinner jacket, you have a far better chance than you do than with any of the LE barrier type rounds. Those will go right through. It's been my experience with testing that I've done over the years in forensics and otherwise, that you're far better going with the longer OTM type 77 grain OTM, which is not yaw dependent. Unfortunately, when you go with like the varmint grenades and the bullets that would work generally well short barrel, you're using a 1 7-inch twist, and that violence and how that rifling is will tear those bullets apart. And a lot of times the bullets will come apart either in the barrel, or as soon as they hit the atmosphere, the bullets will come apart. So you have to be careful with some of those types of projectiles, because they don't react well to the fast twist barrels.
John, suppressed 10.5-inch MRP 5.56 plus LT enhanced BCG. Is that good to go?
Yeah, that's what I have. I have a 10.5-inch. I have that set up in it, and I have my silencer Go Saker 5.56 on it.
Eric wants to know which Voltar A5 buffer weight, H1, H2, etc. do you recommend for a 16-inch mid-length gas setup? A 12.5 carbine gas using 5.56 62 grain and 55 grain ammo. Well,
as long as it's not an extreme heavy barrel or heavy barrel, you'd be fine with an H. That would be your H1. The only time that will be needed really is if you had a heavy barrel, or you had a severe gas port erosion, or an improperly manufactured gas port.
Bob, aside from POF, is there another company that can do individual mil spec chamber fluting upgrades? POF stopped barrel mill and chamber fluting services.
That was not chamber fluting. What they had was the E squared was, it wasn't the chamber, it was on the neck, and it was just in the neck area. And what happened was when the cartridge fired, gas would come back, it would slide through those holes, and that gas would push on the shoulder of the cartridge. It's not fluting as you would say like an MP5 would have. And I can't think of anybody who could do that because it has to be cut into the barrel during manufacturing, the fluting, because you have to have the ridges on there. Where the E squared, no, that was just a matter of drilling the four slots into the neck portion of the chamber. So one can you could modify the E squared, but you can't modify in a standard fluted chamber. And there's no benefit to it because unless you're using roller delayed where it requires it, there's no benefit to it. But the E squared was a whole different ballgame. It's a different concept and it did a different thing.
In your honest opinion, what do you think is the best 308 7.62 semi-auto rifle, or would you build one instead?
All I can tell you is what I have, and I utilize an LMT in any of its variants. As I said to you guys before, I like having the ability to swap out calibers. I like the ability to swap out barrel lengths. In fact, I'm just getting ready to SBR my 308 so I can go down to a 13.5-inch barrel if I so choose. It's the most advanced that's out there. Now, if you don't want to have that and you just want to have one barrel on it, there's several good ones out there. Of course you have Knights, of course you have the Reaper, WRCI, and you can build some beautiful ones too. The Sig 716i is beautiful. You have a lot of good options that are out there. It again depends on how big your wallet is and how much you're willing to spend.
Daniel on DonorBox, thank you, Daniel. When you answered the question, the best factory 308 close to the what would Stoner do concept, you didn't mention the SR25. Do you think Knights is doing something to break away from Stoner's vision?
I think they've gotten a lot heavier, and they've been forced to, just because of what the modern day requirements are. You're seeing more match rifles, more military grade rifles. They haven't done much to decrease the weight. They're still using the full AR-10 bolt carrier group and whatnot. I guess if you were to look at what Frank DeSalma did with the POF revolution, you would see a direction that probably Stoner could have gone by shortening everything up and making it more compact. And also the same thing with DPMS with their Gen 2. You had seen the system being shrunken up because it's not necessary for it to be as large as it is. I would say those would be closer to what would Stoner do these days, more so than what. Again, you're looking at evolution of time here. You're looking at a time now where more engineering work is going into it than what was going on back then. It's a different time, different technology, different way of doing things.
We have a question from Raymond next on DonorBox as well. Thank you, Raymond. He has a question about Black Rifle too, and at the end of it, he said, "P.S. Love you, Heather, for sending the books out." It really became a monster. I really didn't see it.
She didn't.
At the time that I offered it, we had just found out that we could actually get some because it's been kind of unsure for a while, and that was when our dog was very sick and ultimately passed away. So I really worked nonstop for about 14 days straight, and I was looking for even more things to do, and that was one of the things I did. And I thought, oh, maybe I'll sell a case of books and send them out. People have been wanting them, and then it turned into 3 cases and then 5 cases and then 6 cases. And unfortunately, it's then it takes me away from filming and editing and all those things that I need to do. So I will be working all weekend to get things filmed and up so that you guys have a video coming up. But thank you, Raymond. I'm glad you got it and you're happy. He said it's an amazing book. I read the whole thing. He read the whole thing yesterday.
Oh, wow.
One part that caught my eye that was the Colt MARS ammo prototypes. Why wasn't the U.S. government interested? It seems like a good idea considering reduced flash and concussion in shorter barrels like a Mark 18.
The U.S. government never had interest in it. It was originally designed as a special operations type thing. It was for a survival type rifle. That was who it was geared towards as a true PDW. When Colt started showing it, the only ones who really got interested in it was the Israelis. The Israelis saw the 5.56 by 30, and they saw the benefits. Again, it's a high pressure round. I mean, this is a higher pressure round than the 5.56. They saw it, they liked it, they wanted it. And at the time, Colt's management, in their infinite wisdom, decided that they didn't want anything that was going to compete with their M4, and they totally closed it. And to add insult to injury, the gentleman who worked with Colt, I'm trying to remember his name off the top of my head, but he was the retired the special forces guy who was with him. He said, "Well, can I buy the patent so I can produce it?" And they told him no. So both the Colt guys and the Colts, their engineering vault, it would just remain there. And of course, a couple of guys, there were gentlemen went out and he grabbed those from Colt, and I see some of them for sale on the market. Only a couple of them were ever made. But the U.S. government never had any interest. That was back also when Colt was still doing things for innovation. It wasn't necessarily requested by the U.S. government. They were looking for other customers, unlike their later years where they didn't care about anybody but the U.S. government. I did a more detailed review on that in an article for Small Arms Review. If you go to Small Arms Review and Google it, you'll be able, or click it, you'll find it. I did not have access to one of the rifles during Black Rifle 2 because there was one specific gentleman that had all of the rifles, and he wasn't cooperative at the time with me. One day I was working while I was at work at Colt, I saw it sitting in the head engineer's office, and I snagged it up and I took a whole bunch of pictures, some comparative pictures, and then I did an article on it because I could show so much more of it. So if you get a chance to go to Small Arms Review and articles and archives, whatever, and type in my name, you'll see the Colt MARS article, and you'll get a lot more detailed information on that project.
Ant wants to know, do you know if you can buy a Knight's Armament SR15 11.5 inch with a pistol brace, or can I put one on with no problems?
I don't know if I've ever seen Knights make pistols. That's not saying that they don't. I don't recall ever seeing them making pistols. And for as far as the legalities is concerned, I don't know if it has to be manufactured as a pistol, or if you can just add a brace onto it. That's something else you have to check with ATF on. I've never had to deal with that. I don't do too much with pistols here. I definitely don't build them.
There's definitely a lot of conversation about Centurion. Some people say they're hard to get, and then other people say that they happen to have stock. And
Monty is going through things as fast as he can get it. I think Monty is growing significantly faster than he ever thought he would. And of course, he's building all this stuff in house now. So I think the minute he gets stuff in and builds the stuff as fast as it goes out. But I do believe he does do the back ordering if you need to. But if you're looking at quality, that stuff's worth it. That gear is worth waiting for.
Sean says Centurion CM4 is the best mid-range AR, period.
Yeah.
He takes Centurion over BCM any day.
Yeah,
They're
I would
super
too.
solid. Yeah, I need to get a little bit better about sharing the codes, and I've been talking to Chris about it. I always have like 8 million things and ideas in my head and that are running nonstop. And, having him, pull some gear that is his personal favorite and sharing it maybe on the Facebook page or something with the coordinating code, because, there's 3 different codes, so it can be a little bit difficult, but it's 3% off complete rifles, 5% off uppers and lowers, and then 10% off everything else. And it's quite, yeah. Love a discount code, especially if it's for good stuff. Only Louis Vuitton had a discount code. Damn it. I'm scrolling back up to the top. That's why I say never despair. I do go back up to the top. What is your opinion on the Wolf A1T91 type upper?
Well, the Wolf A1 is the Taiwanese T91, and I am very, very fond of it. I've done a couple videos. I did one just on the receiver, and I did another one that was on a T91 clone that I built. The reliability is there. Now, those of you who don't know, that's the first produced for military use external piston version of the AR ever. That's been around for a lot of years. That way predates the HK416, the LWRC, and it's been in service. There's been a couple models even before that that have been in service. So if you want to talk about a time proven external piston system, it's right there. And then those of you who do have one and have access to a Colt LE6940P, I think you'd be really surprised when you take a look at the carrier and the operating rod and the articulating link, how similar that they are.
Any thoughts on Remington Defense 14.5-inch SOCOM cold hammer forged barrels?
I've been asked this question many, many times, and I've never had access to one of the barrels to take a look at. I've never really heard anything on it, but generally I don't give you guys hearsay. If I don't have any experience with it, I'm not going to tell you anything about it. I've heard good things, but I've never actually had one in my hands or fired one.
We're having a lot of conversation to the entire 40 minutes. There was a question more toward the top about, I just haven't gotten to that question yet, but we might as well go and get into it because people are talking about it. They basically want to know what you think about the ammo shortages and if you see like an end in sight and like what's going to happen.
It's not an ammo shortage, it's a demand shortage. What's happening is the manufacturers are producing more ammunition now than ever. There's no shortage of what they're putting out. The
Can't
problem
find
is
primers either.
Yeah, the problem is people are buying it in bulk and they're stagging it up. I mean, there's no way they can keep up with what's going on commercially right now until people start slowing down on purchasing and start buying, in a normal way. They're not going to be able to. But it's not it's not an ammo shortage. It's the demand is so high that they can't keep up with the demand. They're making more now. They're on three. Many of these companies are on 3 shifts. They're going on all the time, and of course, I would expect that to affect some of the components as well, because if they're doubling or tripling wherever their output is, they don't have the ability to sell components. It's all going into live ammunition. But no, it's not even for as far as the cost is concerned. I don't think it's been more until recently where the actual cost of the ammunition is going up for the wholesalers. And that has a lot to do with the fact that they're bringing in more people. It's, there's more money invested in that stuff's all got to come from someplace. But up until more recently, the cost increase is not from the ammunition manufacturers or from the distributors. The big upsale is all from your gun dealers. Your gun dealers are taking advantage of this opportunity to because of supply and demand, and they're jacking up the price on all this stuff. So
yeah, it's like the store. They're trying to make the money.
Unfortunately, that's where these high numbers are coming from. It's not coming from the manufacturers and distributors. It's coming from people who are taking advantage of the current situation.
Do you think does it play into the election at all? I know it does with rifles, but I don't know if it does with ammo.
You have a combination right now of civil unrest and a potential of the Democrats taking the presidency. You have a Democratic presidential candidate who basically has come out and said he will ban your AR-15s. He will ban everything. He has no problem with gun confiscation. So yeah. So again, civil unrest and politically driven. Absolutely.
You know what they should do? They should sell ammo next to toilet paper. I mean, I think it makes sense. Do you think SIG will make a version of the MCX Spear in 5.56.223 with a dual charging option? Any info on LCAN holographic combat optic micro? That he's got several. Let's go with your first part of your question here. You have about 5 in here.
Well, first one, keep an eye out at SHOT Show. You never know. One thing, what you take away from SIG is they produce more new models every year than any other company that's out there. Their R&D is well active. For as far as the new LCAN micro, I'm not familiar with that. I'm gonna have to look into that. The only ones I have here are the Spectres.
Add on what's known in regards to the straight gas tube to what LMT manufacturers, or there are other companies that develop something similar?
LMT did it first. Colt, when they went to their one-piece upper receiver, they went to these straight gas tubes as well. I'm not familiar with anybody outside of those two that are doing it.
Why was an OA93 never developed more than a novelty?
I have to see what that is. Okay. The acronym's not.
Your research assistant is on it.
Yeah. Sometimes it's hard to get all these acronyms.
I just wanted an assistant of my own, that's all.
Oh, Olympic. Okay, yeah. That's very interesting because the gas system off there was a guy, I think his name was Ringendorfer. He's the designer of the Rhino system. The Rhino system was the first commercially available external piston on the U.S. market for the AR-15. He originally had some interest by the U.S. Marine Corps. He actually had shown up to the Pentagon with a backpack with the 7.62x39 upper receivers that the Marine Corps had requested, which I do have one of those, my personal collection. And Marine Corps was interested. He delivered a few to him. Colt heard about it, and Colt stopped it because they had the sole source for the M16 at the time. So he basically was screwed. There's nothing that he could do with it. So Olympic was the first company he went to that actually was interested, and they adopted his Rhino system to put onto these pistols. Now, at that time, pistols just weren't a thing. Prior to the bans, where people could get what they wanted, it was a different political time, and quite frankly, the engineering just wasn't there. I think to make it interesting, and unfortunately, Olympic was not known for quality. So even as good as that system was, if they didn't make a good gun to go along with it, it wasn't going to go anywhere. So I think it was a combination of several of those things.
Someone was asking if we have code for Caracal when they get product available. No, we don't. We only have codes for 3 different companies, and that's for Manta. And that's SAS 20 to save 20% off. G96 products, that's SAS 10 to get 10% off. And then the Centurion codes that I've plugged into the chat. And if you ever forget what those are or you're looking for them, you can go in any of the description boxes on YouTube, and they will be there. But I don't want to shill a bunch of stuff. I only want to have, quality products that Chris stands behind.
You only get things that I personally use and personally would endorse.
I would hate someone to spend their money on a rifle, say, and then they get it and it's absolute crap, and then where's your word at? So no, we don't get them from anywhere else. We're offered them like Olight, and I always say no. Santiago wants to know LWRC Reaper. I'll get that eventually one day. Mark II side charging handle or rear charging handle?
That is a very interesting question, because I had a conversation with Jeff over at LWRC about that. They originally, when they developed the Reaper, went with the side charging handle because obviously you'd be able to manipulate it without taking your face off your cheek off of the stock. However, as time went on, they got complaints that people wanted the rear charging handle. They were more accustomed to it. They wanted better. So the Gen 2 Reaper, they ended up having to come out with 2 versions. One originally, which was the side charging, one was the standard. Myself, I guess I prefer the standard AR type charging handle because I'm only using it once. I'm using it to lock the bolt open before I insert the magazine, and then after that, I'm utilizing the bolt catch. Malfunctions, I'm going to have to move anyways, because if I got to drop out the magazine, and I'm going to have to visually look at the chamber. So I guess I can't really say it's that much of a benefit to have that location, because I'm going to have to move anyways. But I think that really comes down to your personal preference as to what you like. Again, myself, I only use a charging handle once. That's to lock the bolts open before I load it. Everything else is done with the bolt catch.
Dustin, thank you on Donnerbox, wants to know, do you have any experience with the Colt Vector 1911 prototype?
No, I don't get Colts. Now, my pipeline to getting Colts is Michico, is William,
Sean,
and Sean, and Brett, and I don't get any Colt 1911s. Michico, he doesn't get any of the Colt pistols. He only gets the Colt rifles. I don't really have a lot of interest in any 1911 unless there's something incredibly special about it. So it's not something that I really probably would ever plan on getting in unless someone sent it to me and someone offered it to me and said, "Hey, you want to take a look at it?" I certainly would. But I can tell you, I'm not going out of my way to try to find an old outdated gun that has only it's only got commercial appeal.
I also own an LMT MWS 308 16-inch rifle. Do you have any preferred type or make of ammo for it? I use general plinking, he says.
I don't use my general plinking. Mine, I want precision out of it. So basically, I'm using Black Hills 175 and 168 grain OTM out of it. Plinking ammunition, I use a lot of the SIG. 150 grain full metal jacket. That's a good 223 higher power cartridge. There's a lot of 7.62 out there. I mean, obviously M80 ball, Winchester M80 ball is not too bad. It's lower power. Obviously, it's lower pressure than the 308. But my LMT is pretty much, I view them as match rifles, not as assault type rifles. And those 308s are primarily just using the match ammo.
Is the LMT CQB better than the SCAR or ACR?
Well, I can tell you this: I own all three. And if I had to walk out the door right now, I'd be grabbing my LMT CQB. So I guess that answers it. Again, I own all three, and there's very much nothing that the two will do the LMT can't, but there's a lot that the LMT can do that those can't.
What's a good bipod?
I have a couple. I have used Atlas, I've used Harris, and the new Magpul. I don't think any of those are any better than the other. The Magpul is newer. The Atlas the Harris is the most proven military one that's out there. Pretty much every military sniper rifle, DMR rifles always came out with the Harris, so they're a staple. They're a proven system. The Atlas is very, very nice. Now there was a company, Bobro, who made the nicest bipod I've ever seen in my life. It was like, again, one of those Swiss watches type thing that they ended up stopping production because of how difficult it was to assemble and expensive it was. And that was the nicest one that I ever saw, but you can't get them anymore. Most of what I have are Harris, and I just started using some of the Magpuls. They're quite well. K&S puts out a really nice kit that goes with a couple of these, with both the Magpul and with the Harris. I think Atlas too, where they have different kinds of legs on them. They have the spikes for being outside. They have the flat for being on benches and all that. You can swap out the two ends of the legs, which is something else that's very nice.
Do you still have the Centurion Arms Mark 12 SPR, and have there been any problems? That's the second rifle on my to get list in 5.56.
Well, I've had my Mark 12 for 5 years. No, 6 or 7 years, and I didn't get the suppressor until I got here 5 years ago. Yeah, I would never get rid of that. That's one of my best ones. I have never had any issues with it whatsoever. When I first got it, I had to swap out buffers because, again, it was using it in the cold, and of course using a carbine barrel versus a rifle. A carbine lower receiver versus a full-length rifle. Never had any problem, but of course mine has only seen Mark 262 ammunition. I never fired anything other than the Mark 262.
Colt AR 16-51, or keep it original?
I would keep any Colt original. At this point, I would keep any Colt original. And that's primarily due to with their being in and out of the market all the time. The value will always increase whether they're a better rifle or not than some of the ones that are out there, because it has a Hartford Horsley on the side. It will always be a more collectible and more value. I would not modify any of the modern Colt rifles at this point, because you never know when that price could quadruple overnight if they decide again they're going to either go out of business or they're going to stop making rifles again. Are there better rifles than Colt out there? Oh, absolutely. But for as far as rifles that are going to hold their value, that's going to be one of the top ones that will.
If you could see any two companies or engineers alive today to collaborate, who would it be? I think Roger Wang and V7 could come up with some really cool stuff. Actually,
I have two other ones in mind. The first one's name is Michael Brown. He's the designer of the AdCore Bear. He has a company called Ambi Products. I would want him, and I probably would want Robert Faxon, designer of the ARAC. I think those are two of the engineers today that I would get together, because both of them are non-traditional gun engineers who came from other industries, who started off gun designs on their own from a clean sheet of paper rather than looking at the way things always have been done. I think there would be a lot of fresh ideas between those two.
I thought you would have said Eugene Stoner.
He's dead.
I know. That's what I thought it was, to bring back.
Oh, to bring back. I thought you meant
alive today.
Oh. Well,
if you could see any companies or engineers alive today to collaborate.
Yeah, those are the ones alive today. Stoner's dead.
Well, I read it as like if you could bring them back from the dead.
No. Fortunately, that's not a possibility.
Sorry, I need to get
See, she's drinking coffee right now, not wine.
I promise. Maybe if I drank wine, I would be more intelligent. Why didn't Stoner like 5.56? Although all of us knows it was clearly the way to go.
Because he felt that it was a better military cartridge. And he never. You have to understand, at the time, before the Air Force asked for it to be done, it wasn't even on anybody's radar. You had the small caliber high velocity programs that went through, which claimed and demonstrated the benefits of the smaller caliber high velocity, but it wasn't anything any manufacturer was doing. It was really the Air Force. I hate to say that, but it was the Air Force who saw
That
the
hurt.
benefits
That hurt a
of
little
the
bit.
Shiv program and made the request to Stoner. And that's why he basically had his engineers scale down his AR-10 to that caliber. And then once the U.S. government adopted it, there was no choice that he was going to have to make something in that. Now, there wasn't really a choice of him not to. But if you off of his 308 designs, it was scaled down, whether it would be the AR-15 to the AR-10 or whether it be the AR-16 to the AR-18. It was scaled down by his engineers. And then, of course, then he went to Cadillac Gauge with the Stoner 63. At that time, they had to do the 5.56, so there was no choice after that.
Ant says, thank you for the info. Thank you, Ant. Adnan wants to know on Donor Box. Thank you, Adnan. He said, it's one question. You've mentioned in the past that nitride-coated barrels haven't received enough military testing versus chrome-plated barrels, as well as general military sales of weapons fitted with those types of coated barrels. Although since LWRC International has some experience with foreign military contracts, are they one of a few companies to sell any nitride barrels to any military?
What they have sold were special operations type contracts. They've never had a general army contract. When you're special operations, you can pick and choose what you want to buy. And if they're able to convince their customers, which they have been, that it's just as good, they can do it. For any major military contract where you're having major trials where they're going through all that stuff, it's not been accepted that I know of.
My country, Brazil, is replacing our infantry rifles with a domestic design, but it has one mechanism for each caliber in 5.56 and 7.62.
Yeah.
Is this an issue? And if so, what would be the better alternative?
That's the best alternative, is to have one of each. You have one for being in CQB conditions or urban conditions, and then you have one for being in mountainous conditions where you're going to have longer range. That's really the best way to do it, is to know your area of operations and to act accordingly. I don't think it's a smart idea to try to have one that's going to do both. It just doesn't work.
Sorry, I'm scrolling through some of the conversations here. M3A1 grease gun or Thompson SMG?
Oh, that's easy. The Thompson. The Thompson was a machining marvel compared to the cheap stampings of the M3 grease gun. The M3 grease gun has a much lower rate of fire. The sights were horrible on it. It was totally designed to be something up close and personal. It was not nearly as comfortable to handle. No, absolutely the Thompson.
Oh, I can understand this. Back to the ammo topic. I'm starting to get through some of the more ammo questions related. James says, regarding ammo, there's talk in my state of increasing the taxes on ammunition 30 to 40% to pay for background checks and limiting purchases to 20 rounds per month. Yes, it only makes sense to load up.
What state are you on? You got to be in one of these occupied states.
Chris would be like, no, we're moving.
Yeah, that sounds like a New York or a Massachusetts or a Connecticut or a California type deal there.
That's rough. No wonder people are stocking up. What's your opinion on CZ Bren 2?
The CZ Bren 2 carbine, I'm waiting to get my hands on. Michiko William just did a really big review, and he was not pleased. He was really not pleased with what was done to the Bren 2 carbine. He was very fond of the 2M and the 2MSs, but the new carbine with the extremely heavy barrel and some changes that they made to the gas system, he was not pleased. I haven't seen one yet, but I would definitely recommend you take a look at Williams' video. I'm waiting for one. I got one on order, but as I said, at this point, they don't want to send things to people when they don't need marketing right now.
Sorry, there's just a lot of conversation.
Is my moderator working?
I know you're not a fan of the 1911, but
No.
why don't we see its unique trigger straight pullback used in more firearms? A high power used a traditional trigger, for example.
Because traditionally it wasn't something that was likely enough to carry over. There was one company who did it, and they're no longer in production, and that was oh God, I did a video on it. It's no longer in production. They couldn't pay their bills, unfortunately, but they did a push, a straight pullback. I'm sure it'll come to me at some point. Hogue, not Hogue. I did a video on it, but I can't remember the name.
It was recent?
No, it's been a little while. In fact, it was a customer who sent it to me.
Let me see if I can.
It was a very interesting type of a pistol. It was.
No, I can't search on here. No.
I'm sure it'll come to me.
At some point later, he'll scream it out to me, and I'll be like, what do you think the 6.8 SPC round in the AR platform?
I like it. I think the ideal gun would be probably the LWRC 68A5 with a proper magazine, very very well made. I have one. I don't. I have a Grendel barrel for my my Wyndham MCS, but I don't really have anything else in Grendel. I prefer the 6.8 over the 6.5 Grendel because of reliability issues and feeding issues. Now, I will say that could use a stronger mechanism. Something the AR-15 was really designed for a 5.56 type cartridge. The 6.8 is larger. It does wear them out a little bit quicker, but it is a very good cartridge. Been using it for years.
Is the Mark 12 SPR still a relevant firearm today?
Oh, absolutely. You talk to many people who used it. In fact, talked to Monty LeClaire. Was very upset when they stopped issuing them because they felt that it took away a lot of the effectiveness of what a SEAL or special operations guy could do with a DMR type rifle, especially when what they replaced it with was basically the SCAR 16 or SCAR 17, which was not nearly as effective, maneuverable, or anything else. I think most people who used it were very, very sad to see it go. It's still completely relevant today, and I think it's an excellent platform that has a hell of a lot more life in it than it was given.
Apparently, it's Hudson.
That's it. Hudson.
I was just waiting for you to stop. You made his night, so now he can.
Yep. So now I have to worry about it. Link her up and say it's Hudson.
You would too.
Do you think you might be able to entertain them for a moment?
Sure. So now I'm here to answer all your gun questions. Mark White, your question will be next. I don't know. For some odd reason, they didn't really want to hear my answers to their questions. IMI Razor Core 77 grain OTM versus Black Hills Mark 262.
I don't use the Razor Core. Henry over at Nine Hole Review he's had some good luck with it with certain rifles. It is not Mark 262. There's nothing out there that is. Nothing out there duplicates the propellant. It's not a round that I've used, but Henry's had some good luck with it.
They were asking me questions. I wasn't. That would have that would have been entertaining. What gun would Heather carry in her purse?
Probably a SIG P320.
I really like that one.
Yeah.
What's your favorite potato chip? I don't eat potato chips. How are the kids?
I like the Cajun ones. Those crottators.
He's getting
Crottators.
into the zaps. He likes those. He's he's a Yankee. He's trying.
Jesus Christ.
He's trying.
Hopefully I'm sorry I didn't offend anybody.
No, I lost my spot. It has the 6.5 Creedmoor pretty much replaced 308.
It hasn't replaced it, but it's gaining traction. Even though the M110C is starting to ship, Mites had recently delivered a whole series of M110 chambered in 6.5 Creedmoor to the Army. I think that it's killing the 7.62 and the sniper DMR market, not in the machine gun market though.
Does Caracal offer a quad rail option for the 816?
Not in the U.S. In the U.S., commercial market dictated a M-lock rail. I talked to Chris Royce, the designer who's running the manufacturing and production here in the U.S. When they built the one for the commercial market, I mean, the M-lock was king here. So you figure rather than try to play catch up, just put it out the first time. Now the ones that are being sold over in the UAE, those are all quad 1913 rail.
Why does BCM not pin their gas blocks?
Don't know. I never had the opportunity to talk to them about that. I've only gotten to look at their rifles once. A lot of companies don't do it because, again, if you get the Gromans Lego set, people want to have the ability to mix and match parts, which is fine. But when it comes down to a complete your life depends on it. I'm sorry for any manufacturer. It needs to be drilled and pinned. That, to me, I've seen it too often. I've seen manufacturers lose, potential contracts because they didn't do it. It's one of my pet peeves that I'll probably, to my very last breath, I'll be saying is drill and pin.
Any thoughts on 6mm ARC?
Not yet. I have ammunition and a gun on order. The ammunition right now, it's been in back order with Hornady for about 2 months now. As soon as I get the gun in and the ammunition in, we'll be doing some looking. We'll be looking at it.
Don't forget to hit the like button, guys. Any thoughts on the Tavor 7?
That's the one I've been trying to get my hands on. I shot it at SHOT Show 2 years ago. They have not had any available for writers for review. That's one of those ones you have to go out and you have to buy to be able to review it, which are rather expensive and they're very scarce. That's one that I do check every couple months with my contact over at IWI, and I'm trying to get my hands on one. That's one that's in the works.
Is AR and 338 possible?
AR and 338 Lapua? What do you mean? There's 338 Federal, which LMT's already got, and some other manufacturers already got. 338 Lapua. It is. You look at the Noreen Firearms, but because of the type of ammunition, you don't want to use a direct gas on that. You want to use an external piston or a hybrid type system. In fact, Noreen Firearms went with a hybrid system for the 338 Lapua. Some of these higher volume rifles, it's just not as practical to use direct gas or internal piston.
Can you suggest an ACOG mount that will move the scope eyepiece back beyond the charging handle and know about the little roux? What is your recommendation on the best solution?
Couldn't tell you because I've always just used the ones that came with it. To me, the eye relief has never been a problem. I would probably recommend you get a stock that allows you to get closer to it rather than try to fix the scope. Having the adjustable stock should be able to adjust your eye relief so you'd be able to use a standard setup.
What does barrel weight have to do with buffer weight you use? Doesn't buffer weight have to do more with gas port size over barrel weight?
It could have a little bit of both, but the major issue has to do with whenever you have two pieces of metal that collide, the heavier the material that's being collided into, the more elasticity in the material. So the more material you have up here, when that slams into it, the more rebound you're going to have, and that buffer dampens that down. That can be caused by cyclic rate, or it can be caused by the type of how heavy the barrel is. Now, cyclic rate, the movable weights, which had nothing to do with the weight of the buffer, takes care of that. So if you look at the original Edgewater buffer used with the early M16 in Vietnam with the IMR powder 600 rounds a minute, worked fine. Now you put it with ball powder that's going 1,000 rounds a minute. Now you're having carrier bounce. So just adding the weights alone took care of that issue. Now we look at the M4. We use a standard or an H buffer. That worked fine with the standard M4 barrel. Then, of course, when we had issue with the M855 ammunition, that changed a little bit of the dynamics. So we had to increase that weight in the back to slow it down to allow the magazine to present that round much faster. But then we introduced the SOCOM barrel, which was vastly heavier. Now we were having the bolt carrier bounce, which had nothing to do with the with just the bolt carrier bounce. It had to do with the rebound from the carrier striking. That for you needed to have the additional weight. Is movable weights to compensate to stop that recoil or stop that rebound.
We're going to stay on for probably about 5 more minutes, so we're going to try to get through as many questions as possible. But before I forget, and anybody who wasn't at the start of the channel, just so you know, we will not be having a Q&A next week. We will have one on probably Monday. I haven't locked it in yet for Patreon people. They're going to have their Q&A next week. But next Wednesday is my birthday, and so
that's right.
We're going to do something else.
Going to the beach, going to our favorite restaurant out at the Crystal Beach.
Why don't you just tell everybody where we're at?
I forgot. I'm sorry.
We'll be the family with the big, gun sign and
come and take it, Texas flag.
Yeah, come and meet up with us and come out there. For Chris's birthday, I always have you guys send Whataburger gift cards. If anybody would like to make a donation for my wine fund, I'm all for it, because I'll be working all weekend long to make sure that you all have content while before I have to take that day off. Oh, Steve wants to know, are M4 feed ramps truly ramps or relief?
They're ramps. They were designed because of the sharper ogive of the M855 round. What was happening was they were utilizing a standard buffer and a standard receiver extension. What was happening was the way the cartridge was presented, the tip of the bullet was going into the extension or the receiver. It was causing failures of feed. By adding the ramps on there, it cleared that way, so you no longer had that issue. But there was another way to fix that too without doing the feed ramps, and that was just to increase the weight of the buffer to allow more time for the round to present itself. So you can either do either or. In fact, Colt Canada, they never did the feed ramps. They just increased the weight of the buffer, and that problem went away. Well, Colt, because they wanted to prove that the M4 was its own family of weapons that was done with technology that wasn't paid for by the government, they kept both. Both were necessary, but it
I came across a Chrome BCG from Microbest that's for sale, and I got curious about the company product and any info that you have that can help me out.
Microbest probably is the leading and largest manufacturer of bolt carrier groups for the highest tier. That's probably Colt's primary contractor right now. They're utilized by most manufacturers. Because again, they don't manufacture their own bolt carriers. They manufacture to mil spec. I don't know how they separate the mil spec ones from the non mil spec ones, but that is the manufacturer for most manufacturers that are producing these rifles who don't make stuff in-house. So you're looking at probably the highest tier that there is out there.
For the person who's asking about ammo shortages, and because that's been a big topic over the last few weeks, once we get out of the chat, it takes about 15-20 minutes for the chat to be fully processed on YouTube's end, so that you can go back and watch it from the very beginning. I want to say it was around the 45-minute mark is when we got into it, so you can go back there and listen to that.
Another common one is toolcraft. I won't say toolcraft is the quality of the Microbest. I think Microbest is probably a little bit better, but they're good to go as well.
Dylan wants to know, he says he's missed us. He's been working at the gun store full-time lately while doing school. That is definitely a lot. I'm sure the gun shop is extremely busy right now. He wants to know if you could talk about your experience with the IMI 7.62 by 51 168 grain in AR-10 SR-25 magazine.
I utilize the magazines that are specifically designed for the M118LR, and that problem goes away. The standard SR-25 magazines, it will not fit in. I've even come across some other magazines that it doesn't fit in because it is slightly longer. Primarily, these Israelis are using them in bolt-action rifles, not semis. So that could be part of to do with it. But if you look at the Magpul line, you will see a specific one set up for M118LR, and that's the one that you would want to use the 7.62 IWIMO in it. I have some ammunition right behind me here, and I have to be sure that I have the proper magazine whenever I bring it out.
What does the benefit of disintegrating belts have over non-disintegrating belts?
Um, I don't know. There really is a benefit. It's just a different way to do things. It prevents something from hanging out and getting caught on the right side of the rifle or right side of the machine gun, depending on what kind of machine gun it is. They're just less bulky. They are a hell of a lot more of a pain in the ass if you got to restuff them. And for someone who has to restuff them, it's the links are a pain in the ass. The Russians never went with that disintegrating belts, neither did the Germans. But it does add some complication to the mechanism. I can't really say there's really a benefit to using disintegrating belts over, other than the fact that you've only got a belt going in one end and you have it clear on the right with disintegrating, where you'd have a belt hanging out there if it wasn't. So I guess it's just two different ways to do things.
We have a more of a statement from Donor Box from the guy you actually spoke to on the phone.
Oh,
His handle, which is always funny, is Waterburger. He says, "Thanks for another great Q&A. Fantastic phone consultation this week. Highly recommend for one-on-one Q&A. Thanks to Chris and Heather for making the time." Well,
appreciate it. Thank you very much.
doing it. I don't know that is something that we do provide. I do get asked that occasionally. We do that. You just let me know the general topic of what you need to talk about, just so that he can make sure, because he doesn't want to get you on the phone and then be like, "Oh, I can't answer your question
that I can't help you with."
So he just likes to have a general feeling of what you need to make sure that he knows that he can actually help you with that. And then based on like how long for him it was 15 minutes and he asked to go longer, and that's fine. Some people say, "No, I need a solid hour because I need all of this information," and whatever. We do offer that. You can email me at hbartachi@smallarmsolutions.com if that's something that you need, or you're having a problem and you just want to sit there on the phone and talk to him about it and try to figure it out. We also do take questions 7 days a week. So even though you won't see us for a couple of weeks, we do provide that. And I will still probably be doing that even on my birthday, because I never take off. But if you need that, well, we just ask that you make a donation to the channel, because this is this is our business. This is what we do 7 days a week. So, but thanks for everybody who came in tonight. And
yeah, hopefully this time change didn't mess you up too much.
Yeah, it was just for tonight. We'll figure it out. We have a child that needs a car, so unfortunately we're still her taxi cab service. But thank you guys for joining
Thank you guys.
us.
You guys have a good night.
And we'll see you in a couple weeks. And Patreon people, I will be scheduling your Q&A. I'll probably be looking at the calendar tonight and post that for you guys.
Take care.